Yes, good evening and welcome back to the Friday night preview show live on the Seasiders podcast. It's another jam-packed show this Friday evening where we'll be discussing Blackpool's League One away trip to Oxford United. Two teams in fine form. We'll have to see who comes out on top come 5 o'clock on Saturday. Good evening wherever you are from. If you're joining us on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook, definitely hit that like button and share the love on the Seasiders podcast. Anyway, we'll dive into it and we'll bring our guests in as usual. And the one and only, my right-hand man, it is Tom Main. Tom, how are you, mate?
Yeah, very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. Better for it being a Friday and the game's happening tomorrow. We've also been joined once again by Sean. Sean, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thanks. Good to be back.
Definitely good to be back. And we are joined by Oxford United fan and a friend of John Aspinall. It is Steve. Steve, welcome to the Seasider podcast. How are you doing?
Cheers, buddy. Good to be back as well, actually. Second time.
Before Dad has a go at me, i.e. John, for not putting the overlay on, the overlay is now on. We'll keep him happy. But yeah, Steve, how have things been going with you? Obviously, last on the podcast when the two sides last met, but been up to much due to all this lockdown and COVID?
Mate, it's just boring, isn't it? It's the same old thing. You talk to your friends, what you're up to, same old, really. It's just not much you can do at the moment. So no, not really. What about you boys?
Oh, if I start with me, not too much really. It's been football, bit of photography, just sneaking in a few games here and there. But no, it's been tough, hasn't it, Tom? In terms of just obviously you're working still, which is great, but just for the people in general, it's been a tough year, hasn't it? With COVID probably striking this time 12 months ago.
Yeah, it's not been nice. We all know sort of the positions we're in. Some have worked, some haven't. Especially hard for football, keeps everyone together, doesn't it? But we were talking sort of last week and on the third tier show on Monday. I think weirdly, this pandemic has probably brought football fans a lot closer than they were when they were at the stadium. So in this way, it's had its good things. But overall, it'll be great to be back.
Sure, big question here. Others says big chance tomorrow with Draw McGinley not reporting on the game. Where are you tomorrow then?
I'm at Aki versus Wigan, so I'm sure they'll be looking forward to their 0-0 or 1-1 results tomorrow. I'll be 11 in a row then.
Can't wait. Hopefully help Blackpool as well, and hopefully maybe Oxford as well reach those playoff places. But yeah, keep your comments coming in. We'll get score predictions and our team predictions in later in the show. But we'll kick off with all things Oxford. And Steve, I'll bring you in first. Record this season: 15 wins, 8 draws, 11 defeats. Just over 1.5 points per game, 8th in League One. Are you quite happy with where you're currently sitting in the current standings?
I think now, yeah. I mean, obviously we met you guys on like December, and I think back then we were in the relegation zone. Season started awfully, and we were talking relegation at the start and all kinds of stuff. And since then, I think we won 9 league games in a row or something ridiculous. Came against Donny and lost that game, and then after that, Donny went on an absolute trailblazer himself, so losing a bunch of games too. But yeah, since then we had some tricky games against like Portsmouth and Hull and whatnot, and done all right in the main in those games as well. So to be 8th after all of that, it's decent to be fair. So yeah, pretty happy all things considered. Would love the great start, because if it was the great start, we'd have been definitely in the playoffs by now, you know. But all things considered, pretty good.
Just looking at your games at the start of the season, obviously EFL Cup first and FA Trophy. Lost your first game at Lincoln, who were were flying and dropped a few points. But you look at the kind of games, you won, maybe drew one, then lost 2, then back to winning ways. But yeah. Carl Robinson, we know, is a good manager and someone who gets the best out of his players, someone who plays the football the right way, shall we say. Well, there's people who want to be entertained in that respect. Yeah. But what do you think's just changed at Oxford? Is it just the belief? Was there a hangover from the playoff disappointments?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely was from that. I mean, I don't know if you watched the game, but it's a bit like the game we played you boys last season where we absolutely dominated it and then just couldn't see it off, to be honest. So definitely felt the blues of that early season. But I think the other thing for us early season was that we were playing games, and as soon as we win a game, the next game would be postponed. I think we had the most COVID called off games, not for our own doing, by the way, for the, I don't know, perhaps first 10 games or whatever. I think we missed about 4. So we never really got any rhythm. And I think that really cost us early doors. Since then, it's been the complete opposite way. It's been Tuesday, Saturday for God knows how many weeks. And now, it's the opposite. I think that we found that rhythm and we got used to playing on a regular basis. The squad's good size so we can actually sort of rest players and whatnot as well. So I think all things considered, it's like, it's brilliant now. Really, really enjoying it.
Tom, what have you made of Oxford's season so far? We talked about the disappointment of starting the season, not winning as many games or the games they should be doing, but you look at that 9-game winning streak, a bit similar to what Blackpool did after a few bad results, and it can all change, can't it, in a matter of results?
Yeah, I was going to say they've had a very similar season to what we've had. They've got a decent squad. Taylor seems to, he scored again on the weekend, on Tuesday. Some good defenders. Atkinson's been decent this season. They've had, like I said, a similar run, and they've been just disrupted, as Steve just said, with COVID as well, a bit like ourselves. And we're almost identical in terms of statistics and games won, drawn, and lost as well. So we're just behind them. If we win tomorrow, we go above them with sort of a game in hand additionally as well. So it'll be a really tough game tomorrow. And I think, as Steve said, where they started to where they are now, they're in the hunt for the playoffs, and I don't think they could be disappointed with that.
Sean, Blackpool haven't beaten Oxford away from home since Saturday, the 8th of November, 1980. Stats looking at that don't seem to be great in terms of our favour, but we've got to go to a team that are in form and try and get a result. We've done it at Portsmouth, Peterborough. Why can't we do it against Oxford?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, those sort of records, we had a similar record with Portsmouth as well, and we've broken that. So there's no reason why we can't go over there and snatch a win. But I think, as Tom was saying, it's a similar season we both had, really, in terms of creating chances at the start of the season. Both teams were creating lots of chances. It was just the quality in the final third wasn't quite there. And that's why we both went on the winning streaks that we did at the time, because once you hit that final vein of form in the final third, then you're already creating the chances anyway. So it's just a natural progression. It's going to happen eventually. We both play or like to play similar styles of football, although I think Oxford are more consistent with that. We tend to compromise against better sides when we need to. So I think it's probably nailed on for a draw, if we're being honest. But I mean, we can only hope, can't we? And realistically, we need to win these sorts of games if we want to be getting into the playoffs.
Tom, coming back to you, I guess, is the frustration of 2 draws on the bounce at home, meaning this one we really need to win? If you took a win in the other 2 games, 1 out of 2 games, and drew this one, would you be happy?
I think we've drawn 4 now, haven't we, on the spin at home, I think? Is
it 4? Yeah, so I'm just looking at the last 2 games.
Last 2, yeah, of course. But yeah, I think overall we'll be happy with 2 of those draws, and we won't be happy with 2 of those draws. And as Sean's pointed out previously, a few of the fans have said as well, we need to turn those draws into wins, and the chance creation is starting to come a bit more consistent now. But if you offered me a point now, it's not. I don't think it's a negative thing to say no. We've got the ability to win, but they've got the ability to win comfortably as well. So I'd walk away with a draw and go for a win Tuesday. But we should go all out and try and get that victory, because Peterborough is a very difficult game. They're a very good away side. So I wouldn't be disappointed with a draw now, even though it would be many draws in a row.
Steve, I'll bring you into the kind of more the Oxford stuff. Looking at the home record, and we'll move to the away. 9th in the league table with home records, 28 points taken from 16 matches. Recent win was a 3-0 victory over Doncaster. Again, it's going to be tough for any team to come to the Kassam Stadium, isn't it, and pick up a point, or pick up any points due to kind of the run of form that you guys are on.
It is. Home is a funny word for us. We talked about this last time on the show, but obviously it's not actually really. It's hard where we play our home games, but it's not necessarily what we call home. We rent the stadium from our old owner and whatnot. So it's a frowned kind of expression, I suppose, within the club. But nonetheless, yeah, we've done okay, I suppose. I guess our record must be about the same on away. Actually, I have not actually looked, but given that you're saying 9th, it sounds about right. So I don't feel particularly great at home. It's just, it's been one of those. I guess it's kind of, form's been okay, but not brilliant. But I think it's just been the same whether we've been away or at home. I suppose that's in part because of the lack of crowds and whatnot, so we're not quite getting the sort of benefit, I suppose, of playing at home on a regular basis. Our pitch isn't amazing or anything, so missing the crowd is probably key to perhaps not being better at home than we are at the moment.
Just looking back, Steve, obviously winning against Doncaster in the last home game, drew against Charlton at 0-0, same result against Peterborough, lost 1-0 to Portsmouth, and then lost Tranmere's in the cup competition. Just beat Wigan 2-1, who are a side who on the day can beat anyone. I think they're one of those teams that you can't predict. But you look at the last few games, that teams can actually come here, Steve, can't they, to your home and pick up points. But it's that away form that's just slightly better than the home one.
Yeah, slightly. Yeah, I guess to a degree we're somewhat underdogs to some of the games we play away from home as well, so it kind of gives us a free pass. Something like Hull on Saturday, probably didn't expect to get a result. Played really well. They snatched a goal on the break, and then after that we were chasing. But another day we could have got some points away at Hull as well in the same kind of way. We had a similar result at home, to be fair. We lost 1-0 to Hull at home and played really well at home in the same kind of way. So I think sort of history looking at the season, like we can definitely hold our own against the teams in the top half, but we've not quite got the results to back that up. You can see Peterborough and Portsmouth and as I meant Hull as well. We've not actually done too well against the top 6 or top 8, I think it is. But it's the bottom half of the table where we've luckily picked up all the points we needed to get us where we are. So we really need to push on now and start beating the teams around us, like Donny at the weekend. Or Tuesday rather, because I've lost track of days. We need to do more of that now, and hopefully see you boys off tomorrow as well in the same kind of way, and get ourselves in the playoffs, because we've been floating around that kind of space for a while. So we need to push on or give up really, because we're in no man's land right now, right?
Yeah, Tom, coming in here, Richard comment saying that we're better with better teams than poorer teams. I know what he means in terms of we play better against kind of the teams we maybe shouldn't beat, and then we struggle against the teams that we should beat. But looking at that, do you think that helps us going into the game tomorrow? We're not expected to go to Charlton and pick up points. Many people expected a draw or something like that. But do you think that mentality that we can go to games, Tom, and pick up these results against a team in form that will help us tomorrow?
Yeah, I think the fact we play better sides, they play football and we play football when we choose to. And that just suits us a little bit more. So when we played teams like Peter and Portsmouth, we both kept the ball down. We like to work hard in midfield and put pressure on the ball, and that created chances for us. We exploited the wings against teams like that. And I think when we played poorer sides, they didn't necessarily have the quality of the higher sides, but we therefore let them have the ball. And I don't really understand our mentality going into games like that personally. Your Wimbledons and your Shrewsburys and Rochdales with I just and even Northampton to some extent, why we let those teams have a lot more of the ball than we do when we played sides like Peterborough is a bit of a weird decision for me. But tomorrow Oxford will want to play and we want to play. And like I said, it's probably one of the most difficult games so far this season, like it was at our place as well. So I think one side will win tomorrow, but it's as obvious as it sounds, it's the team who's going to take their chances because both teams will have them.
Sean, because you're not there, it's not going to finish 0-0, hopefully. Well, you can't see it being a 0-0, can't you? Two teams who will probably want to get on the front foot. Do you think that will be Blackpool's tactic tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be, if anything, the first time in a while that Blackpool go from the off and try and implement their game on the opposition. That second half against Burt, I think, has brought a lot of confidence in that. In recent weeks, I don't think the team have trust themselves to play in tight areas under pressure in midfield, and obviously Oxford are going to put that press on. And as Neil Critchley described in his post-match, that it was quite easy to play through that press, but we kept going for the aimless long ball to Ellis Sims, and he was playing like a target man. Well, I don't think we're going to have that option tomorrow because I don't think he's going to play. So you're going to be forced to have to take those risks and take those gambles in the midfield. And if both sides are doing that, it's about game management, really. It's about being able to soak up the pressure when you need to have a bit of a rest and then being able to go again later in the game. So it could quite easily be a ton of goals both sides if they're shaky at the back, because of the quality in the midfield of both sides. But as I say, I think it's a game management thing tomorrow.
Tom, do you think this game is going to be won in midfield? I've had the comment up there. I think Gareth said game will be won by whoever runs that midfield, and we thought that against Fleetwood. Both teams battled it out, and a point for me was a fair result. But it's going to be another battle in there, isn't it? Who gets the right? Who gets the right of the other team who goes on and win that game? Because they've both got strikers. Matty Taylor for Oxford. We've got Jerry Yates and Ellis Sims up front who can easily score goals when they have the chances come to them. But it's that key battle in midfield that's going to be so important tomorrow. We've
certainly got the players to battle the midfield. I think every game we talk about on Fridays, like the Fleetwood matches and stuff, generally the game in football is won in midfield if you can control the tempo and defend well. Well, we know we can defend well. We know we probably need a few more chances to score than we should do. So Dougal's going to be massive key in this run-in. I'd personally like to see Ward in there, which we'll come on to talk about later, because if not, they will put the press on, and I think they're a bit more clinical. I know they haven't been, but after Tuesday, they might feel like they're a bit more clinical than us. So a lot of pressing and a lot of sort of tracking the ball down and breaking up the play tomorrow from our two defensive midfielders, and we'll give ourselves a really good chance.
Steve, coming to you, obviously 3 goals against Doncaster. 3 goals against Doncaster on Tuesday. Currently a 10 plus goal difference, scored 49, conceded 39, an average of 1.44 goals per game. Just looking at kind of the attacking options, I briefly spoke about Matty Taylor, 13 goals in 34 appearances. He just seems to be the man that can't stop scoring at the moment.
It's funny you say that. He went on a drought up until Tuesday of not scoring for, I think it was 6-7 games or something like that. Obviously, prior to that, you were right. He was definitely bang on target for game after game. But yeah, the drought's kind of been hitting him pretty hard. So Tuesday was kind of a relief for him. I think both goals weren't exactly great goals, a bit scrappy, but he's that kind of player that's in the right places and can sort of get the final touch, perhaps in very unconventional means, just to get it over the line. So there's a kind of striker you probably always want in your team. You always can know you get the ball in the box. He's going to get in the right positions to pop balls away. But yeah, for us in years gone by, we've not had that kind of player. So it's quite a luxury to have someone like that who can actually be that fox in the box, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, up until recently, we've had a bit of a goal drought ourselves, to be fair. The Doncaster game was the first in a while where we've scored 3. Hence why I guess the team of the week was the way it was. But normally, of late, we've not been scoring too many goals. It has been a drought across all the front line, to be honest. But we signed Barker from Rangers in January transfer market, and that's helped a bit as well. I don't know if you've picked up on him, but he looks like a proper talent on the wing. We've been playing first team for Rangers before he came to us. He was obviously highly regarded up there, and before that he was at City. So yeah, there's a lot of promise in our front three, to be fair. But Shadipo, in a similar way to we were discussing before, like he can be a bit irregular sometimes too. So he can be great or can be absent, So hopefully tomorrow the 3 of them can combine again like they did on Tuesday night, really, at Tiny.
Would you say those 3 are the standout players? Obviously, Matty Taylor with his brace in midweek. Would he be the standout player for you, or is there someone else that Blackpool fans should be aware of tomorrow?
Brannigan in midfield is always highly regarded. I mean, this season he's had a lot of injury problems, which has kept him out for long periods. He had an eye problem that he literally could barely see for a while, but thankfully it's all good now. Last season was amazing. I think he's trying to find his rhythm again now, and fitness is obviously a problem given that he's having to play twice a week after being out for so long. So I'd say he's one to watch as well, definitely. But yeah, I mean, other than that, the 3 midfielder in attack rather are definitely where it's at really. There's a good foundation behind them, of course, but they're the ones that probably make the difference if it comes to that.
Yeah, Gareth's just got a comment here, Steve, if you can answer it. How much did Matty Taylor cost? He's age of 30, but I believe he came in the summer transfer window, didn't he?
Yes, he came on a free actually. We're going to negotiate a good deal. I guess if we were paying him a bunch of money on a contractual basis, but yeah, we didn't actually pay a transfer fee for him. To be fair, we did him. He's from Oxford as well, so I think he's obviously got an appetite to do well for the club and sort of take his own club up a league and see what he can do in the Championship again. Obviously, he came from there last season as well. So yeah, actually a free one, which is quite nice for us for a change.
Tom, kind of looking at another player that will stand out, runs that we talked about in the midfield briefly, is Cameron Brannigan. What looking at his qualities of in midfield, obviously he spent on loan at Fleetwood, been at Liverpool, and then he's gone to Oxford, went there in January 2018. He's going to be a player that's going to be key, isn't he, if he plays tomorrow?
Yeah, I think Josh has put in the chat, he bossed the midfield against us last season, and he's that player that's pivotal in all midfields, isn't it? So that's where the battle is. And we spoke about when we played Fleetwood, keeping camps quiet and teams like that. That's the job we need to do tomorrow, just to shut all the options of the quality midfield out and then push the ball forward and utilise the players we've got. I think we're talking about Oxford's. I was about to say, so crazy. I know all teams have similar scenarios all season, but Oxford's and Blackpool's seems really sort of familiar. You think that Taylor went on a goal drought, Yates didn't score until Burton away. We have similar form home and away, and they've had injuries to midfielders that have been key to their season as well. So it's been a pretty weird coincidence. But yeah, it's important for Dougal. And like I said, it depends who plays virtual ward tomorrow to keep running and putting that press on tomorrow and then create the chances that we're going to have up front as well. So we'll see. Has he been starting recently, Steve?
Yeah. I mean, since his injury, he's been playing 90 minutes pretty consistently, to be fair. But I think late in the game, you can see him tiring because he's just playing Tuesday, Friday, Saturday every week, and it's taking its toll. But we need him in the team really. Like you mentioned, he's just such a quality player. We actually just signed him on a longer term contract in the summer, but there was obviously a lot of talk of him leaving because of his quality, and we had some offers. So I think Millwall offered like £1 million or something for him before, but he's worth more than that definitely. So thankfully we didn't buckle to that, and we've sold too many players of late anyway. We need to keep some for pushing on, So I'm glad that he stayed, and now hopefully he can sort of realise the potential he's got because he's a great player.
Sean, if you look at Brannigan's stats, he's only scored 1 goal all season, and that goal was on the opening day of the season. If he's going to make that step up to the Championship, and you've watched enough football recently, obviously with the job and years gone by as well, just think that adding goals to his game, Sean, will be the next thing for Cameron Brannigan?
I think it depends what sort of system and team he's in, really, because obviously if he's offering that sort of pass, that key pass that you need to create opportunities, if he's creating a lot more opportunities for a team but doesn't necessarily sort of provide goals himself, then it's not the end of the world. But obviously if he's going into a team where they're wanting him to be that progressive midfielder that drives on towards the edge of the box, and of course he needs to sort of have those goals in his game. Talking of midfielders for Oxford, I think that Alex Gorrin's probably my favourite player for Oxford. I always like a player that just has things ticking over in the defensive midfield and is good at intercepting, and he always seems like he's a yard ahead of everyone else on the pitch in terms of how he plays. You think of Kevin Stewart, the way that he's been so key for us in that regard. Obviously, we're missing him for a few weeks now, so that's going to be a massive loss. And Oxford have that; they have that engine at the back that can sort of keep things ticking over, and it's that extra confidence and stability in midfield. So it's important that Embleton keeps him busy tomorrow if he plays.
Steve, just give us a brief rundown of the type of player that he is. Obviously, he's played 32 games this season in all competitions, a regular starter by the looks of it. But what can Blackpool fans expect from him tomorrow?
From Gorrin, he's a combative midfielder, likes to intercept the ball, gets booked at pretty much every game, so ends up getting suspended every 8 games pretty much. I think he's due to get a suspension after one more booking, if I remember rightly. But yeah, he reads the game really well, and he wins it and plays it to the players that, the ball playing players on the pitch. So he just breaks up the play and just holds that line between the defense and midfield really, really well. So yeah, he's one of those sort of players that you don't really get rave reviews on. He's a solid sort of 7, 8, or 8 out of 10, but he's doing a job quietly behind the scenes and letting the other players play. So yeah, he's really important for us, and when he doesn't play, we really do miss him.
Well, but again, I talk about midfielders here, and Mark's put a good question here. Actually, we'll bring it on the screen, because keep your eyes out on Josh Ruffles. He's come, he comes well forward, and as a goals, I know you laugh and stuff, but he's a consistent player, isn't he? Who's going to, like you said, put you a 7 or 8 out of 10 each game, and I guess I've been saying it the last few weeks, but it's going to be such a key battle midfield. And if you guys, with the players that you've got in there and the quality, which obviously reached the playoff final last year, if you can win that against any team in this league, you're more chance you're going to win games, aren't you, than lose them? Yeah,
he's a funny one though. He's been at the club a long time, but always been more of a sort of squad player. And then this year, he's kind of found his place in the team. And as you mentioned, he's been overlapping an awful lot and getting goals at crucial times, to be fair. It's been quite funny because obviously prior to that, he wasn't really scoring at all. And he's just been sort of, I don't think he's got 4 or 5 goals this season. I feel like he must have by now. But yeah, it's all kind of come out of nowhere in many respects. But he's been a solid defender for us all season. And kind of early doors, we're looking to get another fullback to sort of replace him. And because of his form, we just realised we didn't need to do that anymore, because he's just filled that gap perfectly, really.
Yeah, looking at his 5 goals all season, last one coming in a 1-0 victory over Fleetwood back towards the end of January. So hopefully he's not a goal threat to tomorrow. We'll just break it up by a few questions here. So thanks to anyone who's getting questions in. I know there's football on the telly this evening, so again, a huge thank you for joining us. But a question for Steve. He says, what's your favourite moment as an Oxford United fan?
Oh God, that's a difficult one. There's lots of disappointments. I can definitely vouch for that. Like last season, for example. I guess it's getting back in the league. Obviously, we got relegated out of the league a few years ago after our previous owner kind of screwed us over, I guess you could say. And then so we're getting back into the league and obviously pushing on from there to getting through League 2 to League 1. And obviously last season would have been great if we could have made it all the way back up. But that catalyst obviously was getting out of the league, out of the conference rather, which isn't as easy as it sounds. There's a lot of teams that really give you a good scrap down there. And obviously, when you're a bigger club than most, it's like a final to some of those clubs that we were going to at the time, like playing Ashton and all sorts of small clubs that we really shouldn't be playing. But yeah, that's where we were. So yeah, I'd definitely say that's probably it. Really, get back into the rhythm of things and push on up again.
Yeah, definitely. Sean, I'll come to you. Topic here, just Carl Robinson, just a great manager, isn't he? And we spoke before about him wanting to play football the right way, attacking football, ball on the deck. We've seen him do it at many other clubs. MK Dons probably more than any other team. But what are your thoughts on him? He's he can be very touchy on the touchline, as most managers are, but his philosophy, and that's what kind of attracts him, doesn't he? And that's why players want to go and play for him.
Yeah, you can't ever fault a manager like that, really, trying to do that sort of thing in the lower leagues. It's something that fans want to see more often, I think. When you think of the stereotypes of what lower division football is, to have something like that is really refreshing. Obviously, we tried to nick him, and he didn't come anyway, so that's why we've got Neil Critchley, who's obviously wanting to do a similar thing. But I think he's probably, because he's learning and because it's the first season in charge, I think he's more sort of compromising on things, whereas I think Carl Robinson is quite fully intent on knowing that the players that he's got are able to do what he wants them to do at this point. But yeah, I'd wonder how he would step up if he does get sort of a bigger job. I know obviously he went to Charlton, didn't he? And it didn't go as well. But I think obviously all the things in the background didn't help that. But it would be interesting if he got a top championship job to see how he dealt with that step up and in quality. But yeah, as I say, you can't really fault the guy. The way he wants to play is something that we all want to see.
No, I've met him a few times, kind of at Highbury when working at Fleetwood, and obviously trips to Oxford. And he seems such a nice guy, very calm before the game, but after a defeat, he was someone he just kept at a distance length. But Tom, like Sean said, there is a manager who is very ambitious. He wants to get to the top level. He got Oxford obviously to the playoffs and the final last year, where they lost out to Wickham, a game I don't know how. I thought they played really well in that, but again, sometimes as Blackpool fans know, the best team don't always go on and win the finals. But do you think for him that if he can get Oxford to the playoffs again or further, that other clubs will be coming for him? You see like Lee Bowyer, getting chances now at Birmingham. I know a club who are struggling, but with his philosophy and the way he wants to attack teams, it's surely an owner and a club fan's dream to have someone like that in charge.
Yeah, I think naturally, it's a bit like Sean alluded to, we tried to get him because we know of his quality and we're a very ambitious club. And I think no doubt there's probably been inquiries from him in the past as well. But I think I don't know, maybe I'm thinking way too ahead, but if Oxford don't get playoffs, maybe he will move on. But I think he's really determined to right the wrongs of last season and get Oxford to the playoffs. I think I watched the Crew game or the extended highlights of it. And just afterwards, I think it was that game anyway, Steve may correct me, but he got the team together after on the pitch and he gave them a Gerrard-esque sort of speech and said that, this is what we need to keep doing and push on. And the passion was there and he really got his players together. And I think he really, like any manager would, is desperate for Oxford to succeed. So I think if he was going to have any club to the championship, he would like to see how he fares with Oxford. But if they don't quite make it, I agree with you. I think he can move on.
Steve, just looking, 2 points off the playoffs, kind of 2 games in hand on Charlton, who are in 6th place. You're so close, aren't you? But you're looking at that top, I don't know how you look down, you're probably looking at, in some respects, maybe Fleetwood, Accrington, Blackpool, that kind of group there, that a few wins together and you can easily take over the likes of Ipswich, yourselves, Charlton, Doncaster on a poor run of form at the moment. It's so tight in that area of League One that you can lose a game or a few, you can be out of the playoff run, but just 2 points off. Do you see yourselves finishing inside the top 6 this season?
That's that's a real tricky one. You look at the teams that are in the top 6. I mean, if you try and gauge your club versus the clubs above you, it's hard to see that us as a fan base and an income stream and whatnot, that I don't know how we compete with any of those teams really. We certainly have the spending power of many of those teams. So it's a funny one because I think on the pitch that isn't the case. I think we can play against all those teams and get results, but when you try and weigh the clubs up, you sort of almost wonder, should we be there when those guys are sat there already? But I think we can do it, definitely. We've got the right mentality, like you mentioned, the right coach to do it, and I think Tom mentioned before, passion is key to that, and Carl Robinson sort of embodies that really, really well. It comes through to the fans, goes to the opposition fans when they're there, and you can get riled up by that. but it suddenly comes out in the players as well. So he's done a great job so far. And prior to him coming, we obviously had Michael Clapton before that, and I know you guys have got history with him. But it was a similar thing with him, really, where he was kind of understated from his previous job, and then came to us and found his way. And we were loving it until he left to go to Leicester as a coach. But then Carl Robinson's come in, and actually, I think his record's actually better than Mark Upton's now, given that he's playing at a higher league as well than what Upton was at the time. So really, really happy to have him there. When you guys were sniffing last season, we were kind of worried about that a little bit. I'm glad that didn't come to anything. And only this week, the Birmingham job came up again, and he's already said that he's not interested in that. So it's good to hear that. And he seems super, psyched to be in Oxford, and talks about the city and being, feeling at home there. So I don't see at the moment any reason for him to leave. Like, he's got good backing from the board and whatnot. But I think, like Tom says, I guess if things don't play out and opportunities do arise, then you never know. But right now, he seems pretty content as he is.
Yeah, definitely. Just on the flip side of that, looking at obviously the team you're playing, Blackpool, 32 games played, 5 points off the playoffs, Sean. And like I said, if you can win tomorrow against Oxford, maybe goal difference potentially. If score more than 2 goals against Oxford, we go above them with what still 2 games in hand. It's looking good for the Seasiders, but we just got to keep winning those games and keep knocking the door. And if we can keep the door shut our end, chance of picking up those 3 points is miles better.
Yeah, exactly. I think as well, the landscape in the league keeps changing every 5 minutes with the different substitutions that we're having. It's like, if you think about it, so probably a week or 2 ago, I'd have been saying that Portsmouth will probably drop. I was thinking that Charlton will definitely drop, and now obviously Nigel Atkins is in at Charlton, and then the Cowley brothers are in at Portsmouth, so it's completely changing there, and it's starting to get to the worrying case where all these teams are going to kick on now, and you're just going to run out of spots. There's only so many places you can have, so that's why we really need to take advantage of these games in hand, so that we do have that advantage points-wise. But as you say, I think as long as we keep it tight at the back, it's all about the midfield, as we've said, and it could be anyone's game. It's so even. But I think the difference comes potentially with the fact that we probably won't play a holding midfielder. We'll play an attacking midfielder in the 3, whereas Oxford will obviously play the 2, and then they'll have the holding midfielder in Gorin. So I think potentially that will have an impact on the game. But as far as we're concerned, we just have to implement our game onto them and not allow the 30 minutes where we just allow the opposition to get a foothold into the game like we have done in recent weeks.
Yeah, just a slight plug here to the Third Tier podcast, a new podcast that's going live on our channels for this the end of this season. Definitely, if you can follow them on Twitter, it's at the Third Tier with an underscore at the end. Tom, just a bit of a plug for you. Obviously, we've spoken about a bit of League One here in terms of the teams, Portsmouth, the managerial merry-go-round, as it's known in the football industry, but a bit of a plug because your shows have been fantastic numbers so far, and a way for the League One community fans to all come together.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been decent. I think it's made me realise how how good League One is. I think it involves you a little bit more with everything from Oxford to Portsmouth to Gillingham, and just touching upon the playoffs. Every single Monday we go online. I think the Gillingham fan has said, he'll probably keep roughly the same with the playoffs, but I don't think we'll know until about 3-4 games to go, because Gillingham's quality and depth is massive. I'm sorry, quality in the first 11 is massive. They've got Jordan Graham, Dempsey, Oliver. They've got a few good players. Oxford have shown they can beat anyone. We win 2 of those 4 games we've got at the moment, plus Swindon and Plymouth to come up. We could be up there. Can Doncaster hold out? I don't know. But like as Sean said, you can see Charlton finding a bit of form now with Atkins, and the Portsmouth expectations is to go up as well. So you've got about 10 to 11 teams there that can make the playoffs, and I can't personally call it. Like I said before, I don't want to be negative, but I think we're fall a little bit short just due to the fact that where we are in the league and who we've got to play. But if we win tomorrow and we pick up any form of point or win on Tuesday, then we're really marking our territory. But I just feel the experience is not quite there with Blackpool yet. Mm-hmm. Definitely have the skill to do it. I know we've said on the podcast group we've had quite a lot of discussions about expectations, but the severity of, the sheer sort of landscape of what Critchley's done in Calderwood, with the ins and outs, it is phenomenal. I think if we're anywhere near sniffing would be great, but I can't call those playoffs. I don't know about you, Sean or Sam, but I personally can't call that top 6, maybe sort of 4th downward I think Hull will do enough to go promoted. I think they will have enough. People were saying Peterborough and Sunderland, but I think it'll be Sunderland and Hull, and then Peterborough might choke in the playoffs, but we'll see. Sean?
Go on, Sean. Yeah, you go first.
I mean, I've still been clinging on to the hope that we'll finish in 6th place, just sneak in there. But I think it's between us and Charlton. I think Doncaster have kicked on since Darren Moore's left as well. But again, they have the potential to slip out of it. But teams like Oxford and Gillingham, they're gonna keep winning games. So it's about being consistent when you need to be. And I mean, as you say, Tom, our games in hand are looking a lot worse now than they were when they actually happened in terms of the quality of the sides now. Because obviously we had Burton in that game in hand and we'd have thought nothing of it a couple of months ago. And then obviously we came up against them in the form side. And you've got Fleetwood as well under Grayson. You can't count them out now. They're on a real good run of form and they look a really adaptable side. I know they didn't play that well against us, but on their day, they're capable of beating anyone as well. So it's all to play for. And as we know, League One is pretty mental at times in terms of predictability.
There's a word, I think, Steve or Tom said the expectations of League One. And I'll come to you first, Steve, that you look at the teams that are in there, which you've described anyway. You look at Hull are a big team. Peterborough, they can throw money at. They bring in these young players to thrive and sell them off for a bit of money. Sunderland, Charlton are an up and down team between the two. Ipswich, Portsmouth, trying a bit further down. Even like Wigan, I know they've had point deduction, but you look at teams who have been Premier League, Championship in probably the last 10, 15 years. It's such a tough league. And as clubs, are we expecting too much from our teams, Steve, that we have to be in the top 6? We should be in here. But there's teams with so much spending power, isn't there, that we probably shouldn't be in that top 6 in some respects.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was getting to before, really. It's a real weird one in that sense. But I guess it's twofold. Like, you look at the clubs and the size and the history and whatever, but that's not always relevant. I mean, you look at Lincoln, for example, and if you wage that out, then I guess they shouldn't be there on merit of the size of the club or the history or whatever. But on the pitch with the coach, it's a different matter altogether, right? And I guess that's what we need to believe in, that even though perhaps we don't compare with those guys in terms of stature or whatever, then we can do on the pitch with the right mentality.
Tom, go on. Sorry.
I think you're right, Steve. You said maybe we shouldn't be in the playoffs size of squad, but we talked about this previously on Seasiders Pod and the Third Tier. I think no one has a divine right, like that Ipswich effect and stuff, to go into this league and think they're going to walk it, because it's one of the most difficult leagues in the pyramid. It's a really easy league to drop out of if you have a bad run of games, and it's really difficult to get promoted. So teams like Portsmouth and everyone find themselves in here, and one of those big teams are going to miss out, and they've got to go again next season. And how do they find that motivation? We've seen with teams like Leeds and stuff before, that you can find yourself in League One quicker than you hoped for. So I think we might see a shock this year like we did with Wickham last year, and who knows, hopefully if it's going to be one of us, it's one of us. But it's certainly going to be a mad sort of 10 games. There's still lots of points to play for. Even Gillingham have played 36 games. They've still got a lot of points to play for. And if they make them count and we don't against Sunderland, etc., then, they're going to be way above us. So.
Yeah, we'll move on a little bit. We'll talk about we talked a bit recently about Oxford's last 2 games, and Blackpool, we'll talk. I know we've obviously got the post-match podcast, but obviously played Burton in midweek, flying at the moment under Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. Sean, just briefly, was that a good point against Burton, do you think?
Yeah, I guess it was, in terms of the way we started the game. When you look at it, I was sort of screaming from 5 minutes onwards that we needed to just be brave on the ball and try and just implement our game onto them, because you could see that space, as Neil Critchley alluded to, in behind that initial press of theirs. But we were quite lazy with the long balls forward to Ellis Sims, and it's obviously clear, as we all know, that Ellis Sims isn't a target man. He did actually do quite well with the link-up play. About a half an hour in, 35 minutes in, we started to play on the ground and take risks, and it works because we've got the quality in midfield to do it. We just need to trust ourselves that we're capable of it. And I think, obviously, Elliot Embleton really appeared on the scene to a lot of people that haven't already seen. That his quality completely ran the show in the second half, and that game we could have quite easily won. So it's just about taking advantage of seeing how we played in that game and taking it into the next game, because it's all well and good as having that good half. But if we don't then start in that vein against Oxford, it was all for nothing.
Tom, does Embleton have to come into the side after his the impact that he made on Tuesday night?
We'll come on to again the teams in a bit, but he's in my starting lineup purely the basis of merit of how we changed Kai's game and how he opened up the space in that second half. I think Sean's spot on. The reason, and again, try not to be too negative, but the reason I think we fall too short is because against teams like Sunderland and Peterborough, we'd have got ruined in that first half, and we didn't defend valiantly in that sense. They had a few chances. Burton have only lost 1 in 10, drawn I think 1 or 2 out of that 10, and winning 9. So, if you put it on paper, I was pretty sort of scared when they went 1-0 up and they were attacking. We were playing the way we were, but like Sean said, if we get the ball down from minute 1, whether you go 1-0 down playing like that or not, we're going to get chances and we're going to score. So personally, we should have beat Burton. Yates, I think, should have scored his opportunity and being critical of him, but he scored some spectacular goals this season. And to be 7 yards out and have space either side of the keeper who's missed the target, it's an unfortunate miss. I'm not going to, chastise him for it. Is won as many games this season, but we should have probably took all 3 points going into this game, in my opinion. And we need to carry on that, like Sean said, going into Oxford and Peterborough, because they're 2 massively difficult games against footballing sides.
Yeah, we can come on to the teams if you want to now. And just a quick question, I don't know if Sean or Tom, you want to take this one, but we've had a proper kind of a bad injury list, as Gareth alludes to. Medine, Anderson, who's been out for a while. CJ, looks like he's picked up another injury. Stewart with the tackle in the game against Fleetwood. Marv's has been out. Obviously, he spoke on the official Blackpool preview show this evening and said he's kind of slowly getting back into things. We've actually got a lot of injuries, haven't we, really, looking at Blackpool? And when you bring those players back into the team, do you think we're a lot stronger, or just shows the strength and depth that we have, Tom, in this current Blackpool team?
We've said it all season, the ability we have on the pitch is actually quite scary. It's just implementing those tactics, and the injury list we've got now, and with CJ, I think he's got swelling on his foot, is another big miss, whether that's off the bench or start, and it's just an inconvenience to have. And Marv was probably our best, sort of most improved player for sure anyway, in terms of consistency and playing matches. So we've got enough on paper to do the business, to get to the playoffs. But every team has injuries, and we're just lucky that we've had such a half decent squad that we can still be challenging after those injuries. The one thing I've always said is, what if Yates gets injured? Fingers crossed he doesn't. But we're going to have to come up with a very Kevin De Bruyne up front type tactics, because whether Embleton can slot in there or Kai plays as a striker, I don't know, but we're going to be pretty stuck if we lose that striker. And I think, again, if Yates starts to get fatigued, we're going to need to think of new ways to play, and Tuesday showed we can do that without Medine. So I'm looking forward to how we're going to play tomorrow, but I hope we just don't go back to type and play long balls.
Yeah, if we look at the kind of teams, we've had 4 people, or 5 with Tom in there, and I'll bring yours up. Apologies for those who might not be able to see the graphic clearly. But Tom, if you were going to talk you through your 11 for tomorrow's game, looks like you're going for a 4-2-3-1 formation. Just talk us through the reasons why you've chosen that formation and the players involved. Yeah,
not much changes really. It's Ward in for Virtue, because I think he'll do a better job at sitting midfield with Dougal. I think if we're going to play Virtue, like Sean said before, won't take credit for it, but he needs to play in the cam position so he can stride back but mainly attack like he likes to do. But Kai or Embleton will sit in there, or they'll exchange. So Embleton's left, Mitchell's right, Kai centre, attacking midfield, and Yates up front. And just one back four change with Gabriel coming in. As much as Turton's done a really good job, I just prefer Gabriel's tack and prowess. That's it.
Interesting. Sean, I'll come to you. What are you thinking for tomorrow? Is it obviously probably same back four to keep that continuity at the back, or would you adapt things up top?
It's the exact same team as Tom. I'd have obviously Kai probably more off the left, but as Tom said, they sort of interchange. Same with Gabriel as well, because although obviously Turton had a great game against Fleetwood, when it came to the Burton game, I think we had an extra dimension in our attack when you looked on the left with Garbett, and when you looked to the right-hand side, we didn't have that same impetus going forward. And I think Gabriel offers that extra man and extra body because he's so quick at being able to overlap if Mitchell's cutting inside and going narrow, so it stretches the Oxford back line. As Tom said as well, when it comes to Virtue's been really, really good recently. But again, I'd probably have him in the attacking midfielder role because I don't think that the responsibility of having to be organised and composed on the ball in the midfield and being intelligent to be in the right spaces to close off any threats is his role and his job, and Ward's probably the best in the team, apart from Dougal, at doing that.
Yeah, Steve, I'll come to you shortly if you want to think of your kind of Oxford 11 that will start this weekend. I'll go through a few of the Blackpool ones to give you that time to think. But Steve's got his 11 in for tomorrow and the subs as well. 4-2-3-1 with Maxwell in goal, Turton, Ballard, Husband, Garbett, Dougal and Ward, the two holding midfielders, with Mitchell, Virtue and Embleton behind the Yates lone strikers. Subs, Moore, Gabriel, Thornley, Kai, Sims, Holmes and Apter. He's gone for that one. We'll get back to the ones that have been sent in to us. Sam from Twitter, he's gone for a 4-2-3-1 formation. Slightly changed at the back. Sorry, Gabriel coming in for Turton, Virtue and Dougal are two holding midfielders. Mitchell, Embleton and Kai behind Yates. Sam, thanks for getting that in. Matt Jono, he's gone for kind of the same team. Yep. Different ways round, aren't they? Same team again, Virtue and Dougal in there. James Ashton, thank you again for getting this one. A slight change in formation. 4 at the back, Garbett, Husband, Ballard, Gabriel with Maxwell behind them. Kai, Dougal, Ward, Mitchell and Embleton in midfield with Yates as the lone striker. Just trying to put bodies in there in that midfield area. Mark Webster, he's gone for, I guess same team with Turton in there at the back. And as I said last week, Tom, that it's for Blackpool fans, it's great to have that consistency, isn't it? Knowing that you've got a stable back four. And I think Blackpool, on their podcast, showed Husband in that centre-half role start the season. We would have questioned, is that his position? Can he do a job there? But last 4 or 5 games, he's been outstanding, hasn't he, at the back?
Yeah, I've said it most weeks on Twitter. I think he deserves probably the most credit because it's not his natural position and he's doing a phenomenal job. Continuity is important, and I think Steve's just put in the chat he can't drop Turton on current form. But as Sean said, in my personal opinion, I don't think he's done anything wrong. His 2 tackles against Fleetwood were outstanding, literally incredible. Like to back off the man and then go into him like he did was a brilliant bit of defending. However, there's not that balance of that side. We saw Garbett when he scored his goal, put a tackle in, then block, and then take the ball on and then score a fantastic goal. And Turton goes forward probably 2 or 3 times a match, and you can't have that imbalance on the pitch when you want to attack down that side. And Gabriel is just as good at defending. So I think you just need to play your best players there. But yeah, continuity at the back is going to be good. If Turton starts, we should be defensive, and he's a good player to bring on if we ever need to.
Go on, Steve. It's your turn now. How's Carl Robinson going to line up tomorrow come 3 o'clock?
Realistically, I think it'll be the same as on Tuesday night, to be honest. Exact same squad. Given the way we played, team of the week, I'll mention that again, but evidence of it nonetheless anyway. But yeah, I mean, we played 4-3-3 with, as we mentioned before, with Barker, Shadipo and Taylor up front. Really deadly trio, really, on the day. Across the midfield, we've got Brannigan, Gorian and Kelly. Kelly plays more of a kind of quarterback, kind of long ball playing kind of midfielder. Gorian holding, and then Brannigan sort of pushing forward a little bit more. And then across the back, we've got Sam Long out injured, so we'll play Hansen at the back instead of him. There you go, it's on screen. Moore and Atkinson are kind of 2 centre backs we play almost every game, and then Ruffles we obviously discussed before. I guess the one player we've not really mentioned at all is Stevens. I think prior game, I don't know if he played with Eastwood last time we played you guys, but he was our keeper for many years, up until pretty much the start of the season. But obviously after the Wickham game, where he kind of dropped a bit of a clanger in that final as well, we moved to Stevens as our first choice keeper, and he's been brilliant since we put him in. Sort of, I think it was about Christmas time. So it's great to see him in goal now. I think he shaved 2 penalties in 2 consecutive games before the last as well, just to sort of evidence his position even further. But yeah, I mean, after Tuesday night, there's no reason to really change it apart from any potential injuries, but I've not heard of any. So fingers crossed we'll have more of the same.
Sorry, I was looking up just individual players this year for you guys as well. Atkinson is probably got the most consistent score on a few sort of statistical sites and stuff of being, that consistent player at the back this year. Would you agree he's probably been your best defender this year? Or I know win backs are completely different, but has he been quite solid throughout the season?
It's a funny one because we had Rob Dickey last season and we sold him to QPR And Atkinson was kind of bought as his replacement, and then he went out on loan last season while we had Dickey, and he's just fell into that position perfectly, replaced him really, really well. And as you mentioned, he's had some injuries along the way. Feels like he's a little bit fragile still. But when he's playing, yeah, he's brilliant. He'll run from the back. He'll run 60 yards with the ball, which is a bit unusual for a centre back. But I think it scares the opposition because they have no idea what he's going to do with it. He's good on the ball. He's strong. He's young. He's brave. Like he's a quality player, and I can't see him staying with us in the same sort of way as Dickey for too much longer in the same kind of way, because there's so much potential with him as well in a similar kind of way to Dickey. So, yeah.
Just you mentioned it about 74 times this evening. This week's team of the week, but again, you've got to be so pleased with what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plays in the 11 on that, because it just shows how dominant your players were and the team were against Doncaster Rovers in midweek.
It's just a shame to see Steve Evans as coach at the top, but apart from that, it's brilliant. It's a good, it does show you how good a result we had in the week, but most of these players have been playing great for more than one game. So, they deserve more credit than perhaps that one game shows, really. I mentioned Barker before, but he's obviously joined the squad quite recently, but he's been brilliant since he came in from Rangers and looks such a threat running at defenders and just seems to scare the living daylights out of the right back. So, and he can interchange quite a lot of Shalipa across left to right as well. So he gives us a lot of options. Just needed perhaps a bit more coming from the wings to give Taylor the service, because I think that's probably always been at the start of the goals in the last few games, because the three of them perhaps like their fair share of goals as well. So I did need to work on that a little bit more to give chances to Taylor, because he's going to put them away, to be fair.
Tom, your thoughts, obviously, kind of your connections with the League One podcast you're doing, the third tier. Is that something you kind of look at the recent results? Obviously, we know one Gillingham fan will be quite pleased to see 4 people in the team of the week with the manager at that as well. But just goes to show that the teams at the moment are flying, especially Gillingham, and you've got to say Oxford as well. Yeah,
like I said, there's a reason why you can't call the playoffs, and arguably sort of the bottom 4 bar a couple of teams as well. So you've already said that League One's that League One's a mental league, and anyone can beat anyone. But just a shout out to Oliver, because he's a scary striker, and we played Gillingham, I think, in May, and he's literally phenomenal at the moment. He's probably one of the best strikers in the league. He's superb. So you can see the quality all over the pitch on their day that Oxford have, and they showed that last year, and that's why tomorrow is so interesting, because we were scared, use the word scared lightly, but we were scared to play Portsmouth, we were scared to play Peterborough, and we were scared to play all these other teams that we thought were just going to come to us and turn us over to some extent. But we've shown defensively this year that we're resilient, and we've got a good organisation at the back. So it'll be interesting to see how we cope with that attacking ability tomorrow, and we just need to be bang on our game like we have been in recent weeks.
Definitely. We'll move on topics. We'll look at what both managers have said, and we'll finish off with score predictions. So if you're debating which one to go for, you've got a little bit of time before we read those out. But we'll look at Carl Robinson and what he said on the Oxford I Follow. He said the game at Blackpool earlier in the season was a big one for us. We were in a difficult place back then, finding our feet with a new team, and with COVID and without fans, we're finding it hard to get into our rhythm. Our team has evolved since then through look at times and moments that were out of our control. We've changed and found a formula that suits the personnel at the club. The team have found its own identity and personality, and they're playing with freedom at the moment. We keep people on the edge of the seats or on the edge of their sofas at home. Steve, I'll come to you. And what are your thoughts on what Robinson said ahead of the game on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it echoes what we kind of discussed a little bit before. Early season, we just didn't have the rhythm, and new players and players sold and whatnot. It was kind of difficult to get going. But once we have done it, it's kind of gone back to where we were in the main for last season. When we managed to be finishing third effectively before obviously COVID curtailed the season. But it feels like we're in a similar place now where we can push on. As I mentioned, we had some tricky games of late, which has kind of slowed us down a little bit. But thankfully, we've not lost a great deal of those either. So all in all, I think we if we carry as we are, we're there to push, like you guys mentioned, 6th and maybe 5th are there to take as well. But it's going to be tricky because there's just so many teams pushing for that spot. So just have to keep trying.
Yeah, definitely turned a corner since the new year. And looking at what Neil Critchley said just a little bit on the Blackpool website, On the preview section, he says, I thought we edged it in the home game against Oxford, but they are well coached. They're a well-coached side and have really picked up results lately. They have got a great result in midweek against Doncaster, which will give them a lift. I'm expecting a good game of football. Sean, just what he's saying there, that he's going into the game tomorrow with a lot of respect for Robinson and the job that he's done with the team at Oxford.
Yeah, obviously we've said, haven't we, that there's a lot of parallels between the two sides, and we're well aware of the attacking talents that they have. As obviously Steve mentioned, Brandon Barker. I think Brandon Barker's problem in Scotland was consistency, and I think he's sort of building that as he gets to Oxford now. If he's gone into League One, and when he's on form, he's a real talent. And you think about whether you want Turton or Gabriel at the back, pace wise, with Brandon Barker. I think I'd be going with Jordan Gabriel. I think Brandon Barker can really push a full back, and it's important that you're pushing them back as much as you are going forward yourself. But yeah, as I've said, it's going to be a tough game. We all know that. So we'll just have to hope that this time we play our game properly from minute one. And if we do that, we can beat anyone in this division, I think.
Tom, your thoughts on what the manager has said ahead of the game?
Sean summed it up perfectly. Like you said, it's a very respectful pre-match interview. He pays respects to the job that Robinson's done, and I think I watched it, and he was quite smiley, and he kind of knew what kind of game they were going to give us, and like again Sean just said, he just needs to trust himself and trust the team tomorrow, and not go. I don't think Sims will be playing personally, but just play our game, please, just from minute one, because we haven't done that consistently or a lot of this season. And if we do that and we lose 2-1, so what? We won't complain as fans. But if we lose going down the way we don't want to play, then we're just going to get more frustrated with everything. So I'd rather see us die trying.
Yeah, definitely. We'll move on a topic that I must admit we've kind of lost track of in recent weeks is those who have played for both clubs. I don't know if any of you got any that come spring to mind. I think there's one player who was at Oxford last season and at Blackpool this season. Anyone have a guess? Oh, I thought this would be quite snappy, this. Former Liverpool midfielder, never really got a game at Blackpool anymore. No?
I can't actually remember his name right now. I know you, Monover, but I can't actually remember his name. The big talent, right?
Got sent back to his parent club in January after not really cementing a place in the Blackpool team.
Oh, Woodburn.
We got there in the end. Woodburn, that's one player.
He made such a great impact.
Yeah.
What was your... You probably discussed it, Steve. Sorry to come in. You probably discussed it on the last pod you're in. Are you surprised at how he never really cemented a place at Blackpool, or was he like that at Oxford? Obviously, I'd not listened to the last podcast, so I'm not sure if it was discussed.
Yeah. It's a funny one. Like, he comes with a lot of promise. And I think it kind of precedes him, to be honest. He does have the talent, but he just goes missing in the games quite a lot. And I think you can't really afford that at this level, really. And I think that was quite frustrating for us. There were some games where he was brilliant at moments, and that kind of that's why you put him back in the team. But then at the same time, in other games, you're pretty much carrying a player, and he doesn't. I always found that he didn't come across as someone who's really enjoying the game. He never looked particularly happy when he was on the pitch, and I found that kind of strange. Maybe he wants to be back at Liverpool, perhaps that's what it was. But for us, he started off kind of well and then kind of tailed off, and then when he didn't re-sign for us, I don't think anyone was particularly fussed at that point because we'd figured out a better midfield without him after injury and whatnot. And when he went to you guys, I did say, I think in the last pod, that I didn't really see him changing a great deal, and lo and behold, obviously he didn't perform great for you guys either, and now he's gone back to Liverpool, I guess. So yeah.
Well, another player who has been at both and unfortunately is no longer with us. It's Martin Aldridge. Died at the age of 25. It's nothing really, is it? But looking at his time, 2 years at Blackpool, 98 to 2000, 27 games, 7 goals for the Seasiders. And then earlier, I've read it the wrong way around. Earlier at Oxford, 95 to 98, 72 appearances, 19 goals. I don't know if anyone would have seen him play just a little bit before my time personally. I
saw him a little bit. It was kind of when I first started going, and he was one of those just sort of natural goal scorers, really. He was a Matty Taylor kind of player, I guess, in many respects. Good player, and a shame to see him go so young, really.
Yeah. Keep them coming in. We've got a few here. We'll put them on the screen. David Can't read on it. David Barzee, Colin Greenall is one of them, and I think Colin played for Oxford. From looking at these, 88 to 90, 67 games at 2 goals, and then Blackpool 1980 to 80, 683 with 9 goals in there. I think we're all a little bit too young for the Blackpool side of things to have seen Colin play. Anyone else on the other two? Obviously, David Barzee. Again, this is where I think
he played for both.
I'm just looking at David Barzee stats here. Obviously, started his career at Blackpool 81 to 83, 45 appearances, no goals, and then moved to Oxford 87 till 89, 74 appearances, 7 goals. So we've covered low 7, unless there's some that have come in the chat that I'm missing here.
Anton Rogan, I saw there as well.
Anton Rogan there. We'll bring that one up. We'll bring the others up as well. Colin Greenall.
Angela's one in my mind that's quite recent as well.
Trying to think. Colin Greenall, Bill Jeffrey, John Everson, Alex Dyer, Gary Briggs, and David Barzee, which we've mentioned before. One Rovers vlog. Welcome to the Seasiders podcast. Steve Hutchins says Anton Rogan is a good shout. Injury wrecked his time at Blackpool. Josh, looking back at the Benny Woodburn thing, only time Benny Woodburn looked good was during the game against Oxford last season, which I believe he actually ran the show in there. So it's amazing how careers can just turn around. One player that recent Blackpool fans might be aware of. Look at some of these, actually, if they are true. Daniel Adji, John Lundstrom, Tony McMahon, Danny Philliskirk, and Kyle Vassell. I actually didn't know Kyle Vassell was once at Oxford, but interesting. We saw a bit of him, didn't we, at the weekend, Tom? Slightly. He looked good for Fleetwood, and he's someone who can lead the line, and he's going to have to now, especially with Madden and Evans gone.
Yeah, it was a rubbish rumour according to Ben, wasn't it? But no, he was a handful, to be honest with you, and someone that Blackpool could do with now to replace Medine. So, he was really good, really athletic, and I think he's starting to find his feet a little bit, and maybe League One is his level, but he's certainly done a decent job. He just needs to score more.
Yeah, definitely. We'll move on because we've just gone past the hour mark, and we know everyone's got so many plans on a Friday night in lockdown. But we'll finish off with score predictions. I'll write this in the chat as well. Spell it right, which is good. Steve, I'll come to you first. What are you thinking tomorrow? Is it going to be a close contest, like I said, the key battles in midfield, or will one team, or there's probably 3 options, isn't it? One team goes and blows the other team out, a close-knit game, 0-0, or one where there's goals galore? What are your thoughts ahead of the game tomorrow?
It's going to be a close-knit game, to be honest. I think the 2 teams really similar, both in formation, the structure of the team, even the way we don't score that many goals, and generally speaking, I think there's a lot of similarities. So I think all in all, 1-1 or something would suit the result. I think I wouldn't be too devastated by that, to be fair.
Would you not be just the way that Blackpool's away form, is that something that would scare you, and maybe the reason why you've not gone for a kind of a home win, or?
Not particularly, no. I mean, I think it's one of those games you don't want to lose more than anything. We don't want you guys leapfrogging us and pushing us down the table when we're so close. So, it's more about getting management, I guess, and making sure we don't lose position, I suppose. But I mean, obviously, I'd be delighted if we can push like we did on Tuesday night against Donny, but you never can be too sure, really. I think the game at your place early in the season is kind of an advert for how close the teams are, really, and that was when we weren't really in form as well. So you could possibly argue that now we've found our way. We're a better proposition than we were back in December, and that may put us in better stead. But I think it's got draw written all over it, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm joining Steve and yourself on this one. I think it's going to be a close game. I think teams will have chances, but I just don't think they'll take anyway. Both teams have got 2 really good kind of defensive kind of records. They know how to keep the door shut in games like this. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw with Steve there. Gareth, he's got Oxford 1, Blackpool 2, Yates and Embleton to get the goals for the Seasiders to take it all the way back home to the Fylde Coast. Tom, your score predictions for this weekend's game?
I've had a funny feeling all week that we might lose, so I'm not going to change my mind. I think we'll lose 2-1, but we don't concede much, but I think they'll be flying after Tuesday, and it will be a very close-knit game. I think they'll take their chances more than we will. Fingers crossed I'm wrong.
Fingers crossed you are wrong indeed. Sean, coming to you. What are your thoughts going to the game score-wise?
Yeah, I think if we play our game from minute one, then I think we can hope for a 1-1. But as Tom said, I could probably see us losing this, especially if we play and start the way that we did in recent weeks. But let's think positive. We're going to play from minute one, and we'll hopefully get a point or something more. But I think 1-1.
1-1. That's I'm going to put that on my accumulator tomorrow because it's going to come in now. Josh Melling, he's got a comment. He said, "Really rate Oxford. I'll snap your hands off for a point, to be honest, but I think Oxford might just nick it 2-1." Christian says 2-1 to the Super Pool. Let's fingers crossed that he's right. Another Josh, he says 2-1 to Blackpool. Ray Gregson says, "Can't see more than a draw, to be honest. Just go 48 Critch." We actually haven't seen Coach Critchley in the chat this evening. He must be planning his attack tomorrow down in Oxford. Richard, he says 2-0 to the Seasiders, Embleton and Husband to get the goals for Blackpool. Port Dan BFC, says 0-0. John, we won't be happy with that, Steve, will you? John's gone for Oxford 1, Blackpool 2. And Cliff final with these score predictions. Sadly, 2-1 defeat to Oxford. Robinson has a very good streetwise and savvy team, unless Neil Critchley shows some positivity. I'm sure he'll do. Just a final kind of thoughts on this one. I'll finish off with Tom and Sean. Is it just about being positive tomorrow for Blackpool and just go out there from minute one and show what they've got? Because they've done it in other games that they can go away to a team they haven't beaten 30, 40 years and go and get a result.
Yeah, we've got capabilities to win, and we've already said we need to play our game and maybe lose playing our game than lose maybe 3-0. But yeah, it's as simple as that, really. If we get the ball on the floor, play our game, and this is what I alluded to earlier. If we don't play our game and we go long, Oxford will be the first team in recent sort of weeks that we've played that will punish us tomorrow. That's 100%. Yep.
Sean, final words from you on a Blackpool perspective?
Yeah, I think similar to Tom, really, if we don't start from the first minute. I think it's unlucky, really, that we're coming up against the one side that's probably the other best side on the ball in the division when we're starting to hope that we're going to play that way. If it had been anyone else, I think we'd have been really, really confident going into this. But as you say, that's the case. I think as well, when you're thinking about selection, we need to play the strongest players in the positions. I know Turton's had a good few games recently, but there's no room for sentiment. You think about Husband at centre half. Husband's been great, but as soon as Grettison's fit, he comes in. So it's the same with Gabriel for me. There's levels, and we need to play the best team now for the running. But if we play up to the standard that we did in that second half against Burton, I don't see why we can't have a good game.
Excuse me, and Sean, when you hear Blackpool fans say they're nervous about coming to your ground tomorrow, does that fill you with a bit of optimism, or does that make you worry a little bit that the Seasider could come on your home patch, should we say, and take the win?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I don't see it. I just think it's an absolute draw. I can't see you guys stealing it. Although I said that last season at Bloomfield Road, so I'm hoping that I won't regret saying that after last time. But yeah, I think we'll be okay.
Well, Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the Seasiders podcast again. Obviously, we hope the best team win, if not Blackpool, can somehow find themselves a result. But it's been great to have you on the show, and I hope you've enjoyed being on with us. Yeah,
likewise, chaps. Cheers.
Definitely. Sean, again, a pleasure to have you on the Seasiders podcast, mate. Great to have your insight from where you can watch the game. So, again, thanks for being on the show with us.
Yeah, no worries. Cheers.
And Tom, what can I say? Just great to have you on with us, mate. We'll finish there. If you've been watching the show on YouTube, do hit that like button and hit the subscribe button as well. You'll be notified of when shows go live on a Friday evening and Saturday evening post games, and also those exclusive interviews that will be coming more to your screens shortly. But from everyone at the Seasiders podcast, a huge thank you for everyone who's tuned in, left a comment, and joined us in the show. Can Blackpool go to Oxford tomorrow and get 3 points? We'll find out at 5 p.m. tomorrow.